Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm Alex, and as always, I'm here with Maya. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's one of those quiet evenings, you know? The kind where you just want to sit down, have a warm drink, and think about things. Perfect for what we're going to talk about today, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to have a conversation about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. We're getting closer to a new year, and I know a lot of people are already starting to think about what they want to be different. Not just resolutions, but real change, deep change. And I thought it would be good to sit down and talk about what that actually looks like in practice.
Right, and I think the reason this topic feels important is because so many people want change. They really do, but they don't always know where to start. Or they start and then things fall apart after a few weeks. It's not because they're lazy or because they don't care. It's usually because the foundation wasn't there.
Exactly. So today we're going to go through 8 things. 8 things that if you really want your life to look different in 2026, you probably need to do. And we're not going to rush through this. We're going to take our time, think through each one, and talk about why it matters.
And just to be clear, this isn't about motivation. We're not going to hype you up.
If you feel like every year looks the same, this episode might be uncomfortable for you. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is something that might sound simple, but it's actually one of the hardest things to do. And that's getting honest with yourself about where you actually are right now.
Yes, this is so important because a lot of people want to change, but they skip this step. They start making plans for the future without really understanding their present. And when you do that, your plans are built on something shaky.
Right, and I think the reason people skip this is because it can be uncomfortable. Looking at your life honestly means seeing the things that aren't working. It means admitting that maybe some of your choices haven't led where you thought they would. That's not easy to do.
It's not, but here's the thing. You can't fix what you don't see. If you want to get somewhere new, you need to know where you're starting from. It's like using a map. The map is useless if you don't know your current location.
That's a good way to put it. And I think this doesn't have to be a dramatic thing. You don't need to sit down and write a long journal entry about everything wrong with your life. It can just be a quiet moment where you ask yourself, honestly, how am I doing? What's working? What's not? Where do I feel stuck?
And when you do this, try not to judge yourself too harshly. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. You're just trying to see things clearly so you can move forward with real information, not with a fantasy version of your life.
Exactly. So that's the first thing. Get honest about where you are.
And that leads naturally into the second thing, which is understanding why you want to change in the first place. Because wanting change is one thing, but knowing why you want it is something else entirely.
Yeah, this is a big one. I've seen this so many times, and I've done it myself too. You set a goal because it sounds good, or because other people are doing it, or because you think you're supposed to want it. But you never stop to ask, do I actually want this, and why?
Right. And when your reasons aren't clear, it's very easy to lose motivation, because when things get hard, and they will get hard, you need something to hold on to. You need to remember why you started. If you don't have a real reason, you'll quit as soon as it stops feeling exciting.
So how do you figure out your real reasons? I think it starts with asking yourself some honest questions, like what would change in my daily life if I achieved this? How would I feel? What would be different?
And also, who am I doing this for? Is this something I want, or is it something I think will impress other people? Because if you're chasing something just to look successful or to prove something to someone else, that usually doesn't last.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's okay if your reasons are simple. You don't need some grand purpose. Maybe you want to be healthier because you want more energy to play with your kids. Maybe you want to save money because you're tired of feeling stressed at the end of every month. Those are real, honest reasons.
They are, and those simple reasons can be very powerful because they're connected to your real life, not to some abstract idea of success.
So take some time to think about your why. Write it down if that helps, and come back to it often, especially when things get difficult.
That's a good point. Keep it somewhere you can see it. because you will need to remind yourself.
Okay, so we've talked about being honest about where you are and understanding why you want change. The third thing is about making peace with your past.
This one is deep, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much their past is affecting their present. You can't really move forward if you're still carrying heavy things from before.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you need to forget everything or pretend it didn't happen. That's not realistic. But there's a difference between remembering your past and being controlled by it.
Right. Some people are still making decisions based on things that happened years ago. They're still trying to prove something, or they're still avoiding certain things because of old pain, and that limits what's possible for them now.
I think making peace with your past means accepting that it happened, learning what you can from it, and then choosing not to let it define you anymore. It's about saying, okay, that was part of my story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story.
And this can take time. It's not something you do in one afternoon, but even just starting to think about it, starting to notice where old patterns are showing up, that's a beginning.
Sometimes it helps to talk to someone, a friend, a therapist, anyone you trust, because we don't always see our own patterns clearly. Someone else can sometimes help us see what we've been missing.
That's true. And I think there's also something important about forgiving yourself. A lot of people are hard on themselves for past mistakes. They replay things in their mind, wishing they had done something different. But you made those choices with what you knew and felt at the time. You can't go back and change them, so at some point you have to let them go.
That's really well said. Forgiving yourself is part of making peace with the past, and when you do that, you free up energy that you can use for building something new.
Exactly. So that's the foundation we've laid so far. Being honest about where you are, understanding why you want to change, and making peace with your past. These three things aren't flashy, but they're essential.
They really are. You can't build a solid life on a shaky foundation, so take the time to get these right before you start adding new things.
All right, so now let's move into some more practical things, because once you have that inner foundation in place, you need to start taking action. And the fourth thing we want to talk about is designing your environment for success.
This is something I've become really interested in over the past year, because I used to think that change was all about willpower. I thought if I just tried hard enough, I could make myself do anything. But I've learned that's not really how it works.
No, it's not. Willpower is limited. It runs out, especially when you're tired or stressed. So instead of relying only on willpower, it's smarter to set up your environment so that the right choices are easier to make.
Right. Let me give an example. Let's say you want to eat healthier. You could rely on willpower to resist the cookies in your kitchen every time you walk past them, or you could just not buy cookies and keep fruit on the counter instead. The second option is much easier because you're not fighting yourself constantly.
Exactly. It's about reducing friction for the things you want to do and increasing friction for the things you don't want to do. If you want to read more, put a book on your nightstand. If you want to spend less time on your phone, leave it in another room when you're working.
And this applies to so many areas. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to focus better, clean up your workspace. Small changes to your environment can make a big difference over time.
I think what's powerful about this is that you're working with yourself, not against yourself. You're acknowledging that you're human, that you have limited energy, and you're setting things up so that doing the right thing becomes the path of least resistance.
Right. And you don't need a perfect environment. You just need one that supports you a little bit more than it did before. Every small improvement helps.
That's a good point. Progress, not perfection.
Okay, so the fifth thing is about building habits slowly. And I know we've all heard about habits before, but I want to talk about a specific approach that I think works better than most.
Yeah, I'm curious what you're going to say about this.
So the mistake I see most often is people trying to change things too much at once. They get excited about a new year or a new start, and they decide to overhaul their entire life. They're going to wake up early, exercise every day, eat perfectly, meditate, read, and learn a new language, all at the same time.
And that works for about a week, maybe two.
Exactly, because it's too much. Your brain can only handle so much change at once. When you try to do everything, you usually end up doing nothing.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is to focus on one habit at a time, just one, and make it so small that it feels almost too easy. Instead of saying, I'm going to exercise for an hour every day, say, I'm going to do 5 minutes of movement every morning. That's it.
And the idea is that once that becomes automatic, once you don't have to think about it anymore, then you can add something else.
Right. It might take a few weeks or even a couple of months for a habit to really stick. But once it does, it's yours. You don't lose it. And then you build the next one on top of it.
I like this because it's patient. It's not trying to rush things. It's trusting that small steps taken consistently will add up to something big over time.
And they really do. A year from now, if you've built even 3 or 4 solid habits this way, your life will look very different. But you have to be willing to go slow at the beginning.
That takes a different kind of discipline, not the discipline of pushing hard, but the discipline of holding back and staying consistent.
Yeah, exactly. It's a quieter kind of strength.
Okay, so the sixth thing is related to this, and it's about protecting your time. Because you can have all the habits and plans in the world, but if you don't guard your time, other things will fill it up.
This is something I've had to learn the hard way. I used to say yes to everything, every request, every invitation, every opportunity, and I thought I was being helpful or ambitious, but really, I was just spreading myself too thin.
And when you spread yourself too thin, nothing gets your full attention. You're always rushing, always behind, always stressed.
Right, so protecting your time means getting comfortable with saying no. Not to everything, but to the things that aren't truly important to you. It means recognizing that your time is limited and how you spend it shapes your life.
And I think this also means being intentional about your schedule, not just letting things happen to you, but deciding in advance how you want to spend your days, blocking out time for the things that matter before everything else crowds them out.
One thing that's helped me is looking at my week before it starts and asking what are the 2 or 3 things that really need to happen this week, and then making sure those get scheduled first. Everything else has to fit around them.
That's a good strategy because if you don't prioritize your priorities, no one else will do it for you.
No, they won't. And it's not about being selfish, it's about being effective. When you protect your time, you actually show up better for the things and people you care about.
Right. You have more energy, more presence, more focus. You're not always running on empty.
So think about where your time is going right now. Are you spending it on things that matter to you, or is it just slipping away on things that don't?
That's a question worth sitting with.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about the inner work, the foundation. We talked about practical steps like designing your environment, building habits slowly, and protecting your time. Now let's move into the final part of our conversation, which is about consolidating all of this.
Yeah, because having the knowledge isn't enough. You have to actually integrate it into your life and keep going when things get tough.
Exactly. So the 7th thing is about finding people who support your growth, because change is hard to do alone. The people around you have a huge influence on who you become.
This is something I've thought a lot about because sometimes the people closest to us aren't supportive of our changes. Not because they're bad people, but because our change makes them uncomfortable. It challenges them to look at their own life.
Yeah, and that can create tension. You start making better choices and suddenly you feel like you don't fit in with your old group anymore. That's a painful but common experience.
It is, and I don't think the answer is always to cut people off, but it is important to find some people who are going in a similar direction, people who understand what you're trying to do and who encourage you to keep going.
They don't have to be your best friends. They could be people you meet online, in a community, or even just one person at work who gets it. The point is to have someone you can talk to, someone who supports your growth instead of pulling you back.
And I think it's also important to be that person for others. When you encourage someone else's growth, it strengthens your own. You create a positive cycle.
That's true. We grow better together. We need people who believe in us, especially on the days when we don't believe in ourselves.
And sometimes those people can hold us accountable too, not in a harsh way, but in a supportive way. They check in, they ask how things are going, they remind us of what we said we wanted.
Right. Accountability can be really helpful, as long as it comes from a place of care, not judgment.
So look at your circle. Who do you spend time with? Do they lift you up or drag you down? And if you don't have supportive people yet, start looking. They're out there.
Okay, so that brings us to the eighth and final thing, and this one might be the most important of all. It's about accepting that change takes time and learning to stay patient with the process.
This is the one that trips most people up because we live in a world that promises quick results. Lose weight in 30 days, build a business in 6 months, transform your life in a year. And when things don't happen that fast, people get discouraged.
Yeah, and the truth is, real change is slow. It's gradual, it happens in small steps, and sometimes you don't even notice it until you look back months later and realize how far you've come.
I think what helps is shifting your focus from the destination to the journey. Instead of asking, am I there yet? Ask, am I moving in the right direction? Because if you're consistently moving forward, even slowly, you will get there eventually.
And there will be setbacks. That's just part of it. You'll have days when you fall back into old patterns, when you feel like you've made no progress at all. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human.
Right. Progress isn't a straight line. It's more like a winding path. There are ups and downs, twists and turns. The key is to keep walking, even when it's hard.
And I think there's something beautiful about the slow approach. When you take your time, you build something solid. You're not just chasing quick wins, you're creating lasting change.
You're becoming a different person slowly from the inside out, and that kind of transformation can't be rushed.
So be patient with yourself. Trust the process. Celebrate the small wins along the way. And remember that every step forward, no matter how small, is still a step forward.
That's a really important message because so many people give up too soon. They don't see results immediately and they think it's not working. But often the results are coming. They just need more time.
Exactly. Keep going, stay steady, and trust that the work you're doing now will pay off in ways you can't yet see.
I love that. It's hopeful without being naive.
Well, that's what we're going for, right? Clear, honest, and hopeful.
Definitely.
All right, so let's take a moment to bring everything together. We've talked about 8 things today, and each one builds on the others.
We started with getting honest about where you are right now because you can't move forward if you don't know your starting point.
Then we talked about understanding your why, knowing the real reasons behind your desire for change, because that's what will keep you going when things get hard.
We discussed making peace with your past, letting go of old stories and patterns that have been holding you back.
Then we moved into action, designing your environment to support your goals, making the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder.
Building habits slowly, one at a time with patience and consistency.
Protecting your time, saying no to what doesn't matter so you can say yes to what does.
Finding people who support your growth, surrounding yourself with those who lift you up and understand where you're headed.
And finally, accepting that change takes time, staying patient, trusting the process, and celebrating your progress along the way.
These 8 things aren't complicated, but they are challenging. They require you to be honest, to be patient, and to take consistent action.
And that's what real change looks like. It's not about dramatic transformations overnight. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work.
And if you do that, if you commit to these 8 things, 2026 can be the year when things really start to shift for you.
Not because of luck, not because of some external event, but because you chose to do things differently.
That's powerful, and it's entirely in your control.
So, as you finish listening to this episode, I hope you feel calm and clear. Maybe pick 1 or 2 things from this list that resonate with you the most and start there. You don't have to do everything at once.
Just start somewhere. Take one step and then another. That's all it takes.
All right, that's going to wrap up our episode for today. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for listening. We hope this was helpful, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what resonated with you.
Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and keep moving forward, one step at a time.
Bye, everyone. See you in the next one.
Bye.